part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. On today's show, we're going to catch up with Allan Taylor of The Athletic, covering the Florida Gators. They got a big one hosting the Alabama Crimson Tide, coming to the Swamp this Saturday. We'll preview that game with Allan and find out what he's made of Florida so far, and do they have a chance to pull the upset over the Alabama Crimson Tide. Also, we'll catch up with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough from Lindy Sports, get his thoughts on some of the SEC games happening this weekend, and we will go around the conference as all the SEC coaches on their teleconference yesterday with some tidbits on this weekend's games. I'm Chris Gordy. Be sure to follow Locked On SEC for free wherever you get your podcasts. You'll get the latest episode of the show as soon as it comes out each and every day. And a quick reminder, is no better place to catch ACC action than over on the Locked On ACC podcast hosted by Candace Cooper. Follow Locked On ACC over on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's jump into it.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Boots out to the right. Interception. Makes the handoff. Throws in. What a catch.
Around the conference.
And we go around the conference. We start with the Florida Gators. Steve Spurrier, no stranger to facing a number one ranked Alabama team. But this week, the Florida legend, he will not be on the sidelines. It'll be Dan Mullen taking on Nick Saban. Talking to Tony Barnhart of SI's Fan Nation, Spurrier told him this is going to be one of the biggest games we've had around here in a long time. Going to be a loud one, that's for sure. And I really think we've got a chance. Spurrier, of course, upset number one Florida State back in 1997 as head coach of the Gators. He said that was a big night for the Gators. Maybe it could happen again. You never know. Speaking of Alabama, their star linebacker Will Anderson sustained a knee injury in the Tide's win over Mercer last weekend. On Wednesday, during his weekly SEC teleconference, Nick Saban offered an update on Will Anderson. He said he did practice on Tuesday. We're taking it day by day. Said if he continues to make improvement through the rest of the week, he certainly could play in the game. So if I had to put money on it, I'd say Will Anderson's playing, but we'll see. Of course, the Florida-Alabama matchup, a lot of storylines, but one of the biggest ones that at least Florida Gator fans are looking at is the quarterback spot, Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. We know that Dan Mullen said the game plan is we usually have a pretty good set plan going in on how we're going to use both quarterbacks. He said it's pretty simple. They know the plan, like our running backs, our receivers. They prepare for the plan and kind of know what we have scheduled going into the game. Now, as for Richardson, he tweaked his hamstring in Saturday's win at South Florida. Mullen says he expects him to be ready to go on Saturday. He said, quote, "Oh, he's done fine. He's practiced every day, still getting treatment, making sure he's healthy, ready to go. But he's had a good week of practice." I wonder how much Dan Mullen is keeping mum on this, and if we see only Emory Jones at quarterback on Saturday. It would be a big loss for Florida. If they're going to have any chance of pulling upset on Alabama, they've got to have Anthony Richardson play as well. But we'll see what his status is as the game gets closer. Of course, the Swamp is getting ready for a packed, sold-out crowd. Going to be loud in Gainesville. And yesterday, Florida tweeted out that their end zones have some fresh paint featuring an orange background and blue text. It's going to be a different look for Florida in the Swamp in the end zones. This is the first time the two schools are playing since the regular season, since 2014. First time they're playing at the Swamp since 2011. Florida's most recent win over Alabama. And you got to go back to the 2008 SEC title game. Tim Tebow was there. Been quite a while. Over in Knoxville, Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel providing an update on his team's quarterback status yesterday. He said, "We do not have a starter for this week yet. Joe Milton was out of practice yesterday. I don't know if he'll be available on Saturday. We'll see where he's at as we get closer to kickoff." Heupel did provide injury updates on both of Tennessee's running backs, Tyon Evans and Jabari Small. He said both of those guys we don't have a final word on yet. We're hopeful both of them will be able to play. Evans missed the Pitt game with an undisclosed injury, while Small had to leave the game in the first half with a shoulder injury. Vols will host Tennessee Tech this Saturday. Over at Auburn, Brian Harsin talking with the media yesterday ahead of their big game going up to Penn State to take on the Nittany Lions, and he said containing Penn State quarterback Sean Clifford will be one of the keys to the game. Clifford has throwing for 477 yards and 2 touchdowns this year without throwing a pick. But he's also a threat to run. He has more than 800 career rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns. Harsin said, for us, we got to do a good job in coverage. If the quarterback runs, we got to rally to him. Have to be able to get to the quarterback as well. That starts with those guys up front. Auburn's game against Penn State, a 7:30 Eastern kickoff Saturday night, will be televised on ABC. Over at Mississippi State, they are coming off a big win over NC State last Saturday. There was a huge crowd on hand at Davis-Wade Stadium, ringing their cowbells, which was a new experience for Mike Leach. Their full stadium was a welcome change after the COVID year of less fans last year. Mike Leach said, quote, I thought it was good. Glad they finally opened everything up. Mississippi State will leave Starkville for the first time this year to take on a road game at Memphis this Saturday. One thing the Bulldogs players will be missing, not allowed at Liberty Stadium, are the cowbells. Mike Leach said, oh, I don't really pay much attention to that. I guess they got to do what they got to do. It's my Mike Leach impression. Over at Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher getting ready to send his second starting quarterback out there this week as Zach Calzada will take the field against New Mexico. Talking with the media yesterday, Jimbo said, we're all thinking about the SEC games. All games are the same to us. Hopefully we'll have a really good outing. Hopefully we'll play well around Zach and let him do his thing. Talking about Calzada, Fisher said he can reach all the parts of the field with his arm. At the same time, he's a really good athlete. Had a couple good runs last week. I like all those traits. Very competitive. Of course, found out earlier this week, Haynes King is going to miss several weeks out having surgery. So Zach Calzada is the man until further notice for the Aggies. Over at Georgia, JT Daniels still dealing with that oblique injury. We do not know if he's going to be ready to start this Saturday night against South Carolina, but Shane Beamer said, talking about Stetson Bennett, who could get the start for the Bulldogs, said the word baller gets thrown around too much, but it is a perfect word to describe Stetson Bennett. He is a baller. I can remember we'd be in those staff meetings at Georgia, and it seems like multiple times a week Kirby would comment on Stetson Bennett. It's obvious how highly Kirby thinks of him, and he should. Stetson Bennett last week started for the Bulldogs, was 10 of 12, passing for 288 yards and 5 touchdowns in their win over UAB. Man, Shane Beamer is just complimenting the hell out of Georgia this week. I like the tactic. Hey, they're unstoppable. They're unbeatable. Their quarterback's incredible. The defense is the best I've ever seen. Kill them with kindness, Shane Beamer. We'll see if South Carolina can stay in this game on Saturday. Over at LSU, they're going to face Central Michigan at home, and Coach O says they got to contain the Chippewas' running game. Coach O said they run the ball very well. Number 7 is an outstanding running back for them. The biggest thing is tackling. Lou Nichols does a good job with yards after contact. Going to be a challenge for us. Ogeron also addressed the status of running back John Emery, who was ruled ineligible earlier this week. He said he's unavailable right now for the year. Things could change. If they do, we'll play him. But right now, he is unavailable for the rest of the season. Over at Arkansas, Coach Sam Pittman's trying to keep his team focused after their big win over the Longhorns. And Pittman talked with the media yesterday. He said, first of all, we did not practice great on Tuesday. We've got to improve. We've got to work on that. We probably haven't been in this spot for a while, but we know how to get ready, and they'll be ready. With Georgia Southern on deck this Saturday, could be a letdown spot for the Razorbacks. They'll have A&M the week after this, but Sam Pittman said, look, it's concerning. I didn't think we had the effort we had in previous practices, all about that effort. So hopefully Shane Beamer can get to, or Sam Pittman can get to his team this week, and Arkansas beats Georgia Southern. Over at Ole Miss, they're preparing for a scrappy Tulane team coming into Oxford, and the Tulane head coach, Willie Fritz, said he knows this Rebel offense is mighty, mighty dangerous, averaging about 600 yards per game. Willie Fritz said, we always want to try and get some pressure, but sometimes we got to rush 3, sometimes 4. Sometimes you sell the farm out and try to bring in more guys than they have to block. Matt Corral sits back there, pats the ball. We got to be really, really good in coverage, both underneath and over the top. Of course, Tulane had a close one week 1 against Oklahoma, losing that one 40-35. They rolled Morgan State this past week 69-20. So Willie Fritz may be hoping to get into a shootout with Tulane. And then lastly, Southeast Missouri, their head coach, very complimentary of Tyler Beatty, the running back at Mizzou. He said, I got a serious man crush on Tyler Beatty. Said if he played in a college football league, he would pick up Beatty 11 times at every position. And lastly, it was announced yesterday, Nick Saban, A Football Life will premiere this Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on the NFL Network. It'll be a 1-hour show with sit-down interviews with Nick Saban, Miss Terry Saban, Bill Belichick. So definitely set your DVRs. Check that out if you're a fan of Nick Saban. All right, when we return, we're going to talk all things Florida Gators with Allan Taylor of The Athletic. That's coming up next. Need to remind you guys about our friends at rockauto.com. Look, you've got tons of different options out there on how to get your auto parts, but the best place to go is rockauto.com. When you go into some of these auto parts stores, the chain stores, you know the ones I'm talking about, half the time they're going to go behind their computer. What's the make of your car? What's the model? What year? They're going to be doing the same exact thing you could be doing at home on your own computer at rockauto.com. And you could save time and money when you use Rock Auto. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Prices always reliably low for every customer. They got everything you need. Brake parts, check. Tail lamps, check. Motor oil, check. Even new carpet, they have got it all. Go explore their easy-to-use website and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure you're locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com right now. Make sure you tell them Locked On sent you. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and a pleasure now to be joined by this guy. We had him on before the start of the season, and now we have him on ahead of one of the biggest games of the season for the Florida Gators. Obviously, the biggest SEC matchup of the weekend with the number one team in the country, the Alabama Crimson Tide, coming to town to take on the Florida Gators. And joining us now from The Athletic is our buddy Allan Taylor. He joins us now. Allan, what's going on, man?
Man, just ready to get this SEC thing underway after watching two sort of humdrum games with FAU and USF.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's kind of funny. I mean, Auburn's kind of going through the same thing. It's like you played two good games, you won them, you looked impressive, but all right, now the real test of what can you do? What is this team going to look like this year? And with the Florida Gators, let's start here, Allan, because there's been so much talk about Anthony Richardson through the first 2 weeks. I've seen him. I've been impressed. I mean, every time the kid touches the ball, something electrifying happens, and it's no disrespect to Emory Jones. I think he's played fine. A lot of fans saying, hey, Anthony should be the starter, but I couldn't help but notice he tweaks his hamstring late in the game on Saturday against USF, had an ice pack on it. What's the latest on his health and his even availability for this game?
Well, I'm hearing that he is probably okay to play. I think it's one of those things that, pregame might tell us differently, but as far as I've been told, he's been practicing and receiving treatment, and so he should be good to go. He is so electric. It's almost ridiculous, the yards per play average this guy's averaging, when he throws it downfield or he just takes off and runs. He turns simple QB powers into 75 and 80-yard runs. I'm personally of the mindset that Florida's going to need both him and Emory Jones playing well Saturday to beat Bama, because I feel like, Richardson's dynamic playmaking ability is there, but if he's only running 35 to 40% of the offense, Saban and Golding are going to snuff that out after a while. So that's where Emory comes in with this sort of complete package understanding and operational faculties that need to factor in, but he can't be throwing 2 interceptions either like he's done in the first 2 games. So I think we need both those guys, playing sort of mistake-free for the Gators to, put up 25 or 30 and have a chance this week.
Yeah, I've kind of said the same thing, Allan, and it's like, why give Alabama one guy? Make them have to prepare for both. Why not? I mean, it's, make them have to stop both guys because they both have their own skill set and they're both talented. One thing I said coming into the season, Allan, I thought Florida was going to have to run the ball better. They just didn't even try to run the ball at times last year. It was all just so pass heavy with Kyle Trask. But man, I thought it was going to be Malik Davis, Damian Pierce, Naquan Wright. Like, I thought it was going to be those guys running the football. I did not expect 2 weeks into the season, both your leading rushers would be your 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's like we're back in Starkville with Damo and Colin Plays in the SEC West, with Nick Fitzgerald and Dak Prescott doing so much. They've really committed to it through the first 2 games, and again, the competition, is relative to what it is, but you're leading the nation in rushing. You're up there around 370, 380 a game. So at least, there's a legitimate run threat there that should be helping the passing game. And, we saw Emory Jones for the last, 2 years really as sort of a package change of pace quarterback in a wildcat situation. So, why risk a handoff when you got guys like Emory and Anthony Richardson who can just tuck it and go? That's sort of been Mullen's strength ever since back in his coordinating days. He would run the offense that fits the personnel versus having this template that you would just recruit to and try to make guys fit.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense. I know Ventrell Miller was banged up. What's the latest on his status? And then overall, what have you made of the defense? I know, haven't really faced a big test so far from the two offenses that they faced, but what have you made of Todd Grantham's defense so far?
Yeah, nowhere to go but up after last year. And so far, it looks a little better organized. And you would expect that based on how many front seven guys are back. They're still playing some young safeties that can be tricked up at times. But I like the front seven. Zach Carter, Cox, Chris Boggle coming in as the Buck linebacker. It's like they've got 3 or 4 small forward body types from basketball that are just lanky and explosive, and they've got a mix there. Ventrell Miller will be critical, to getting those guys lined up and communicating on the field Saturday. Still don't know about his situation, but they have taken another Buck linebacker, Jeremiah Moon, who's a 6-year guy, and they've moved him back to inside linebacker the last 2 weeks. So, that's a fortuitous move because you could probably, get by with him and Mahmoud Diabate and a couple of backup inside linebackers if you need to. But again, I know they'd love to have Ventrell on the field just to keep guys sort of in line and aligned.
Talking with Allan Taylor of The Athletic. Allan, with the receivers, you lose Kadarius Toney, you lose Kyle Pitts, you lose all these pieces that you had in the receiving game. Copeland has seemingly stepped up. Almost 200 yards receiving, albeit on just 6 catches. What have you made of the pass catchers so far?
Yeah, pretty quiet in week 1. And then Copeland, as you mentioned, sort of detonates last week. And that's a career game for him. I think he needs to be wide receiver 1. He needs to be a guy that threatens the defense on every series so that guys like Justin Shorter, Trent Whittemore, Xavier Henderson, and 6-year guy Rick Wells can operate one-on-one and help themselves out. Copeland was a top 70 recruit going back, I think it was to 2018, and it came down to Florida and Alabama. He hasn't delivered on that potential yet, but last week he certainly showed what he can do, and all his deep balls last week happened to come from Anthony Richardson. Whether that's a symbiotic kind of thing or what, I'm not sure, but that was a good sign for that receiving core, which is really young, really talented, and really has some long, big bodies. Copeland's actually one of the smaller guys at 6 feet, but there's a ton of 6'3", 6'4" guys with speed and range that could get that unit looking pretty good as they go along.
Let's talk a little bit about the environment. I know they've already announced it's going to be a sold-out crowd, rocking atmosphere, really the first time in a while where the Swamp is going to feel like the Swamp. You kind of wish it was a night game where the crowd could really be electric, but afternoon game in the Swamp, it's going to be rocking. Did I see that they're going to paint the end zones, orange with blue text, so a little bit of a different look and all that, but what are you expecting as far as atmosphere on Saturday?
I think it's going to be crazy. I keep hearing people going back to the 2019 Auburn game, which was really the last sold-out Rockets environment, and I think that day Bo Nix threw 3 picks, and Florida won a defensive-oriented game. Really interested to see how Bryce Young handles that for Alabama, right? Because his first year at Bama last year, they're playing in an empty stadium. So obviously didn't encounter that road noise component. So, I expect some false starts and some communications and some timeouts with the clock winding down based purely on, what the crowd can bring. And I know the Gators would like for it to be, 2010 South Carolina-ish, right? Where Saban took that team into Columbia and that atmosphere was just nuts, and the number 1 team got beat. So I expect it to be just ear splitting. And as long as that thing is within a score or two, I don't think the energy is going to wane at all.
It's going to be fun to see, and ultimately we'll see, what Florida can do to stay in the game. Like you mentioned, if Anthony Richardson is there playing and he's healthy, man, I think he just gives them such an added dynamic and can keep them in this game. Last thing, Allan, and love reading your stuff, by the way, at The Athletic, covering the Florida Gators and the SEC. Give me a prediction. I mean, does Florida have a chance to win this one?
I think so. I mean, I operate under the thesis that if any team is pronounced to be invincible, then they're not. And, the love giving Alabama, which is well-deserved for what they've done in the past, but it's really over the top for a team that, I think Miami had some phony confidence that got exposed. And last week they played Mercer. So I think this is one of those where it's going to be a tight game. And I like Alabama by, 3 to 6 points. But certainly not the 15 that Florida's getting right now.
One last thing for you. Because I had somebody asking me, is Anthony Richardson like, if Emory Jones performs bad in this game, do they move to Anthony Richardson? I said, you can't hold Alabama over Emory Jones. Like, if he goes out there, throws a couple interceptions, you don't lose your job against Alabama. Now, if he does that the week later and throws 3 picks against Tennessee, then yes, maybe a quarterback change then. But just curious your thoughts on my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's, even the most ardent Anthony Richardson supporters were, well, after the Alabama game, then you can flip Richardson in. I think as long as there's an SEC East division title at stake, as long as this team's competitive, really as long as the locker room loves and trusts Emory, which I think that's still the case, then they'll continue to sort of use this 2-quarterback system. And really, again, as we mentioned earlier, how much can Richardson do? Right now, he feels like a pinch hitter who can, only hit right-handers, right? Well, if he's got to face a lefty for 5 at-bats over the course of the day, then maybe that platoon doesn't work. So, they've got a couple gifted guys, gifted in different ways. And I think Richardson's time is coming. I'm just not quite sure they're to the point where they can let him do it for 4 quarters.
Allan Taylor, you could follow him on Twitter and, of course, read his great work over at The Athletic. Allan, thanks so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Enjoy the weekend.
All right, thanks so much. That's Allan Taylor there of The Athletic. More to come right after this. Quick minute here for our friends over at SweatBlock. We've been telling you about them for a couple of weeks now, and I'm telling you guys right now, doctor created, doctor recommended, works for up to 7 days per use. Basically, here's the deal. If you're going out to these SEC tailgates and SEC stadiums, and you're like me and you're a guy who pits, you know what I mean, where you got the arm under, sweat under your arms and it's showing through your T-shirts and you got to bring a change of shirts, try our friends over at SweatBlock. They have created these antiperspirant wipes that are stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. Basically, you apply it at night, you go to bed, you wake up, you shower, you go about your day without worrying about sweat, and it is guaranteed. They give you a dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock does not help keep you dry, you get your money back. It has been a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years, over 13,000 reviews, and is currently #1 in Amazon antiperspirants category. That is unbelievable. Manufactured right here in the USA. Go check them out at sweatblock.com. You can get them today for 20% off at sweatblock.com when you use our promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON. You can also find them on Amazon or at CVS, but go try them out. I guarantee you will love the results at sweatblock.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDON, 20% off at sweatblock.com. Need to also remind you guys about our friends at BetOnline.ag. Look, we are back and better than ever. All eyes were on the gridiron this past week with the NFL underway. We're 2 weeks into the college season. College football and the NFL are back, and BetOnline is your #1 spot to place all your action this season with a new updated website and interface, way more easier to navigate. Find all the games you want to find, from the odds, props, contests. BetOnline.ag continues to be the #1 source for everything football. Just head to their website right now. You can do so on your mobile device. Sign up today. Receive a 100% welcome bonus. You can double your initial deposit just for signing up. Use our promo code LOCKEDON, or you can use the promo code NFL100. From football to boxing, baseball, whatever it is, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for this season. BetOnline, they're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, they are your online sportsbook experts. Roll along here, Locked On SEC. Our thanks to Allan Taylor for joining us. Now we're going to switch gears with one of our favorite segments every week, catching up with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports, and has been very busy. He's been out there on the grind. I know he's going to be heading up to Penn State this weekend. Always good to talk all things SEC with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough, lindysports.com, and he joins us now. Lyn, I picked Arkansas last week to beat Texas. I just knew with that hostile environment up there in Fayetteville that would be a difference maker. What did you make of Arkansas's win on Saturday?
Yeah, no, I picked Arkansas as well. In fact, I had a guy call me from the press box or getting ready to go in there, a longtime friend of mine that's an Arkansas fan, and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Y'all are going to win." And he said, "Oh," I said, "Listen, y'all are going to win. I'm not just saying this to blow your head up." I said, Texas, I think, is a little overrated, and I don't think people realize how many good game breakers you've got. Arkansas, indeed, they've got they don't have the quality depth because of not recruiting as many as like 4 or 5 star guys as Alabama does, or Georgia, or Auburn, or those guys. But Arkansas has got some great skill position players, and I think their quarterback should have been playing last year. There was some controversy there about Philippe Franks playing, and then they got a great running back. But I think that Burks is the best wide receiver in the conference. And then you consider their linebacking core with Catalan, I think, and my favorite player's name, Bumper Pool. And for anybody that sees that on TV, that is his real name. His parents named him Bumper.
All right.
So they got good linebackers, and I just thought they were a surprise waiting to happen, and they did. And hey, and for your sake, I saw Rice played a better game against Arkansas than Texas did.
Yeah, you're right. Rice did put up a better fight against Arkansas than Texas did. Let's get to Texas A&M, Lyn. They lose their starting quarterback up in Colorado on Saturday, and Haynes King. Zach Calzada has to come in. They survive and get the win, but I thought Calzada was not all that impressive. You think this is going to be a problem for the Aggies in the coming weeks?
They could. If you look ahead at their schedule, the quarterback situation is shaky. I think even before they got the starter injured, maybe it was a little shaky. You got Georgia has been proven to have 2 very good quarterbacks. You got Florida that's got 2 good quarterbacks. You got Auburn that's got 2 good quarterbacks. And then you've got, of course, Alabama's got a good quarterback. Arkansas, look what they did. Kentucky, look what their quarterback's doing. You got the best quarterback story in the country going on in South Carolina. Now that may blow up on them this weekend, and probably will. But I'm not throwing Texas A&M into that picture. And Texas A&M still has to play Arkansas away from home. They get Alabama and Auburn both at home, where they've never beat neither one of them. LSU's not looking great, but A&M's not either. So I'm not trashing A&M. They're number 6 or 7 in the country, and I think they got a lot of good players, but they need to watch out, because this would be if they do not end up being competitive for that Western Division championship, then this is going to be a big letdown, because this was supposed to be the year that Jimbo got them there, and based on his coaching history, it's the year that he got them there, and so much hype, and Jimbo and some of his players before the season talking about this could be the year that they knock off Alabama. Now Alabama looks like a steamroller, and A&M is fortunate to beat Colorado. That's a mid-range Pac-12 team, and certainly you'd think, regardless who the quarterback is, they'd go, they'd score a touchdown in the first 57 minutes of the game.
Talking with Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. Lyn, 2 monster games in the SEC this week. Alabama travels to take on Florida in the Swamp this Saturday. The afternoon game on CBS should be a rocking environment. And then at night on ABC, Auburn goes up to Penn State. Both Florida and Auburn are underdogs this week. Any chance either of them can pull off the upset?
I think both upsets could be pulled. I'm going to pick Alabama, and I'm going to pick Penn State. but they're not heavily strong picks because you got 4 good teams that you're talking about here. We're going to see the real Florida. People are saying, well, you could have a controversy at quarterback. I don't think so. A lot of folks in the audience will remember when C.J. Leak was the quarterback at Florida, and his backup was Tim Tebow, and they played a 2-quarterback system the entire time for the whole season, and they won the national championship with that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think Georgia's in bad shape because they have 2 good quarterbacks. I don't think Auburn's in bad shape because they have 2 good quarterbacks. The question is going to be, can the overall Florida team keep up with the overall Alabama team? And I've got to see that before I'll believe it. I think Florida could absolutely win the game. I think it's more likely they have trouble covering the line. But we'll see. I think we'll know a whole lot more. This is Bryce Young's first game to really go on the road to a hostile environment and play a ball game. You would have said, oh, yeah, but look at what it did against Miami. Well, yeah, but look at what Appalachian State did against Miami at Miami. Miami's lucky to beat App State. And that's no put down on App State. They got a solid program these years. But they're not Alabama. And so, let's see how good Florida does against them, because I'm not sure Miami's quite the measuring stick that we thought it was. But I do take Alabama for that ball game. I take Penn State for the one. I will be in the press box at that game. Looking forward to it. It's a stadium where I've never covered a game, so it's kind of off my bucket list of one of the few significant stadiums in the country where I have not covered a ball game. Penn State's got a lot to prove. After starting 0-5 last year, people kind of wrote them off. They've already gone on the road and beaten Wisconsin. Now, I understand that Oregon beating Ohio State was not a conference game, but it shows a chink in their armor. So I think Penn State is looking at this. Our Lindy's football report, we've got 6 or 7 affiliates in Pennsylvania, and one of them is affiliated at State College. So I'll be on the radio with them tomorrow and again on Saturday, and have been talking with them, and they're putting a lot of stock in this ball game because they beat Wisconsin. It's the whiteout. Last time they had a non-conference whiteout since Alabama played there, and it's going to be it's going to be big if they're good enough to beat Auburn. Then they're going to figure that they put themselves in a position to be considered the main contender to beat Ohio State in that division of the conference. Which, if that's the case, that puts them in the national championship picture. They got a solid quarterback back for his 3rd starting season. Got great receivers. Auburn, on the other hand, if they're good enough to go up and beat Penn State in this hostile environment as good as they are, then they're going to compete with anybody in the SEC, including Georgia, Texas A&M, and Alabama, all 3 of whom they get to play. I think they're the only team in the country that gets to play the number 1, 2, and 6 teams head-to-head. So if they could win at Penn State, Auburn controls its own destiny. Now, Auburn's looked really good, but they've looked good against 2 teams that are not real good teams. So I take that with a grain of salt. They've got a lot of ability, but that's not the same as going on the road and playing a team like Penn State. You can make the case and say, well, if Wisconsin can't beat Penn State at home, how's Auburn going to beat Penn State at Penn State? And that's sort of the argument that has me leaning toward Penn State in that game. But both of those 2 games, guys, are going to be worth the price of admission.
One of our favorite segments every week, catching up with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. Lyn, thanks so much for the time, man. We'll do it again next week.
All right, guys. Look forward to talking to you.
All right, Lyn Scarbrough there of Lindy's Sports. That is just about going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Oh, real quick, before we go, I just saw this. I got to mention this. Don't poke the bear. Brenton Cox, Florida Gators junior linebacker, yesterday afternoon, asked about the Alabama game, said, we're ready, of course. The big question is, are they ready? Brenton, stop. Be quiet. It's not what you want to do to Alabama, giving them any kind of bulletin board material. First off, they don't need it. Second, just don't give them anything. Anyway, appreciate our guests, Allan Taylor, Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. We'll talk with our brother Taylor McHargue tomorrow on the show, get his thoughts on the SEC weekend ahead. Quick reminder, betting on the SEC does not have to be a guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and Lee Sterling, follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by BetOnline AG, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC. Remember to subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and check us out on YouTube. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.